there's even a story in my family background where I think it's my great-grandfather was essentially an exorcist. And he allegedly in India exorcised a jinn out of a child, trapped it, and said, I will let you go if you promise not to harm my family for the next 7 generations. And so I think I'm generation 6. 7 will be my children. My grandchildren are.
Your grandchildren.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot of generations of no one pitching in and capturing a gem. You guys have been resting on your fucking laurels for a minute.
Hello, investigators. The Candela Obscura Core Rulebook has arrived and is ready for you and the members of your circle to dive into. Candela Obscura is a new investigative horror RPG that uses the Illuminated Worlds System, created by Darrington Press, and is featured in the ongoing anthology series here on the Critical Role channel. The Core Rulebook is offered in both a standard and a deluxe limited edition, each containing all you need to play and run this game, with dozens of pages of additional lore, detail, and artwork bringing the setting to life. Begin your journey as a key member of this esoteric organization by assembling your own circle, investigating strange occurrences, and fighting against dangerous phenomena throughout the Fairlands and the ancient ruins of Old Fair. Find it now in all Critical Role shops, Darrington Press Guild stores, and other friendly local gaming stores. Visit darringtonpress.com/Candela to learn more. And without further ado, let's take a sneak peek behind the scenes of Candela Obscura.
All right.
Just crow really loud.
Everybody put your hands out. And take a deep breath. And drop your hands. This game in particular is set up to play in a very cinematic way. That means that the opening of every session is generally some sort of like cinematic that I'll describe for a minute or two. I will set the scene. And you will have that information as your characters because that will be the briefing that you got from Candela about the situation. So you won't have to separate your player and character knowledge that much from it. But there is that question of like, if we're not there to influence it, what do we know, right? And it's essentially like the opening of CSI or like of X-Files or one of those shows where there is a cinematic open and then you as investigators come in and know that information. But beyond just that, I tend to run games in a cinematic style, meaning that like I will call out that we have a shot that is facing this way and this is what we see. I might also intercut stuff, meaning that I might jump between, we might be jumping into a place and you are still asking questions of a lightkeeper, but we are already in that place. So we're describing the setting and then we're like having the discussion and we're then talking about how you all are traveling and we're still in the previous scene, like the way we would in a movie, right? So know that I'll make that clear when it's happening. It won't ever be like unclear, but I tend to do that so that we're moving the story along very quickly. The last thing there to know is that it's not cinematic, but it is collaborative. The approach to this game that I take to this game is a little bit different in that I might turn to you and ask you to describe what a thing looks like. I might ask you to describe what this person looks like, or if we're going to a new locale, I might throw it around the table and have everybody add a detail about this place that they see. So be prepared to be collaborative in that way. I see myself as a facilitator of the story that you all want to tell, not as much like a game master that you're looking to as the arbiter of truth always. I will take what you give me and then I will regurgitate my own like details based on that. And that is how we all kind of build this space together. And that reflects exactly what we're going to do next, which is build characters. I don't have anything planned for our campaign. I know nothing. And that's the way I like to fly in. Everything that you all give me here is how I'm going to do my prep for the campaign. You are all the main characters. So I don't want to make a thing that makes all of you side characters. So
we've seen it in action. It's pretty dope.
It's pretty wild.
So it's really fun. But what it means from my side and then in turn from your side is that I'm going to ask of you specific questions and what you give me, I'm probably going to use. which means give me the things that you're interested in. Everything that you do here is essentially a flag for me to say like, hey, this is what I like, right? And I will take that and use it the best that I can. Is that clear? That's cool.
Yeah.
So stressful.
This one.
Amazing. Let's jump into characters. I know some of you have some strong ideas about what you want to play. Some of you have multiple sheets in front of you. I would love to just go around the table and talk about what you all are thinking from what you've seen here. Let's start, Travis, let's start with you.
Yeah.
We'll move this way.
I have a name, just because I like the way it sounds. Nathaniel Trapp. He, him.
Cool.
I like the idea
Love
that
that.
Nathaniel comes from old money
Okay.
in New Fair, a family of wealth, and he hates that.
Ooh.
Hated
okay.
it his entire life, hated the expectation, hated the weight, hated the grooming, all of the things that came with that life.
Yeah,
Despised
yeah.
it, liked going to school, liked his chums, his friends, and I think despised the fact that as he got older, he saw them trying to figure out what they were going to do, or going home to their families that were trying to put food on the table, or any of those things, and that disconnect. And so I love what Brennan and Luis have been talking about, having served as soldiers in the military.
Yeah.
And it would seem like something that a little Silver Spoon kid might do, which is become a commissioned officer,
Right.
a very, let's say, poorly suited, like second or first lieutenant that gets then thrust into action and is woefully inept
Yeah.
at telling other men what to do in life or death situations,
Right.
and probably that also being horrible. But maybe doing that and having had connections with these two fellows from the war, and when he comes back, while he watches all of the horrors of the post effects of war and PTSD, which is a very real thing and I think very relatable, he also was not ready to go back to money or to mommy and daddy's skirts or slacks.
Yeah.
And I think he wants to affect change. So maybe partially to spite them, I'm looking at journalist or detective, which are almost the same thing, just with one with a pen, maybe the other with a revolver. And I think it would be about trying to poke at the world that his family has made money in. If it's a detective, I think the family is saying, like, keep your nose out of our shit. And if it's a journalist, I think it's stop asking questions.
Right.
And I think how this connects with Candela as we move into it is, I'd like to imagine that there was a situation, I think post-war, here in the city, where he was part of a moment and was maybe rescued or saved by an investigator or
Cool.
a lightkeeper.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe the Robin Suarez thing.
I love that.
Robin got jacked up, he saw it, he feels like a debt has to be paid,
Uh-huh.
because men that have seen combat, they know about debt, they know about
Yeah.
Survivor's Guild and everything else. And I think maybe he went to Candela or is trying to repay that debt or trying to pay it forward, and maybe in that ask he gets some sort of assignment, or maybe they follow up that he has some former leadership training, which he does not feel like he maybe still has.
Right.
And if they're like, if you needed somebody to handle some hard stuff, who would that be? Or maybe some wild stuff, who would that be? And maybe he goes to those former men that he has actually seen like heavy shit with.
Yeah, I love that. Well, a couple of things stand out to me there that, I mean, all of it's amazing. One of the things is the juxtaposition between war and the high life,
Sure.
right? And the juxtaposition prior to the war of you wanting to reject that, right? And then being thrown into war and realizing what that actually means.
Yeah.
And then the coming out of that, right? The realization of how your life is changed and not being able to go back to the life that you used to have. And I wonder if there's a struggle there. I wonder if that's playing into it, right? Which is like this suddenly feeling loss because of the difference between what your life, what you know you should just be walking back into, and what you know you can't.
Like, it wasn't enough to go from money and privilege and say, like, well, I want to join the common man. Now you've seen what conflict actually awaits for the common man out there. So now that you're back, you've been given the gift of coming back. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
Can you affect change on the inside and maybe stop that, or other corruption from happening,
Yeah,
right? And maybe that is paying off.
Well, and there was this event that happened at the tail end of the war, which is what actually won New Fair the victory ultimately, which was this like experimental weapon that was deployed in what is now Westrek, where you're talking about maybe being from. And that weapon was it was an electric weapon. It was a weapon that just decimated everybody on the battlefield, including all of the New Farin, all the Halen soldiers as well. Just destroyed everybody. Basically an atomic bomb of sorts.
Clean sweep.
It was a clean sweep, and it was just like, hey, this is the power we have. And, you know, a day later, the treatise was signed. The like retreat started. And so that event, that show of power and that show of disregard also for people was a thing that made them go like, oh, they're not fucking around, but also I'm sure had an effect on all of you who were in the war to say like that could have been me there.
And how far away is Westerek from New Fair?
Yeah, so if we're looking at the map, it's on the west, and it's just that like Westerek. You see it. Yeah. It's the like trenches and it's just out of the city. So they were so close to like invading the city.
Oh yeah.
It was a place that used to be called West Eklund.
Yes.
So before it was decimated, it was called West Eklund. Now it's known as Westrek because it's just been decimated.
Wow. Hence the wreck.
Right. The wreck. Okay. And so those people were like so close to the city that the leading theory about why the military did this is because they were gonna hit New Fair, like fully make it into New Fair, and they were like drop the bomb.
Right.
The War Council and Avengers.
Yeah.
Exactly. They were like drop the bomb. They're so close, just nuke it. And electricity was not developed in the same way by the country that they were fighting. By otherwhere. And so this was like the atom bomb, right? Where it was like, this is a force of power that nobody's ever seen except from the gods during lightning storms, right? Like that's kind of the equivalent of how the people of Otherwhere saw it.
And they had harnessed this somehow?
They had harnessed electricity. And so now electricity has permeated the city, right? So now you have like...
That's how we got electricity?
So it was a development of the weapon that led to the harnessing of electricity, just like most...
Yeah, same. We have so much things that's from either war development or space development.
Right.
Roads were an invention of the Roman military. And then they were like, I bet you could use this for farming.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, the Roman military developed the first like paved highways because they were like, we got to march faster. And then it was like, and if these are around, then after the war's over, you could totally use it for just walking.
Yeah.
Bubblegum too, or some
it's like how they,
products.
even in like Poland, like the width of the roads and through a lot of Europe are because they were like, well, we gotta fit a tank through it. How wide is a tank?
So, all of it's war.
It's all,
oh my god.
All of it's war.
Many developments come out of that, and so that's what we're seeing of electricity here. New Fair was the first place to get electricity within Hale. Was the central place that was being developed because it had a need for it. So all of that sort of, I think, plays into that backstory in an interesting way, and I'd love to see, depending on how you go journalist or detective, there's definitely a lot of overlap there.
I think I might just look through the quick start guide and maybe just ask you like of a list or a short list of like influential families or big names or we can figure out something.
Great, let's jump over to you.
It's great because I've been kind of reflecting on our first little play test, and it kind of seems like we all have like the war as connective tissue that's also like intrigued me as well, which I think could be really great, sets it apart from the first chapter, could really bind our circle. So still thinking of kind of doing like a little bit modified version of my bag lady, ground her a little bit, make her a little less kooky, maybe not as old, but was thinking also about her being still kind of someone who wants to like speak truth to power and really kind of being there for the amount of displaced refugees because of the war. And while all these atrocities were happening, she was kind of focusing her efforts kind of on the sidelines and underground to help with people who were displaced. Really the type of like, older woman who's going around passing out broth and soup and making sure that people have blankets and are there for that. And I do think she maybe now wants to kind of continue that hospitality, taking care of people who are in these vulnerable situations, that are in these situations based on the war and the atrocities of the government.
Yep.
By maybe still continuing to volunteer, maybe at shelters, or like veteran type of like VA hospitals type of stuff. So I kind of imagine her being, which is why I was like kind of looking at the doctor of maybe pulling something from the doctor, but it's a lot more like not your learned doctor, but a little bit more like
jack of all trades when it comes to
healing. Yeah, I know a good tonic that can help with your upset stomach. I know how to turn a tourniquet, but a lot more, kind of maternal in that way. And still think I kind of want to have her be that cross section of being a little bit of a slink, being someone who's maybe still very much in touch with people on the streets. Maybe living on the streets herself once again, but not because she is like in a desperate or fucked up, situation, but because like she knows that is where she is most valued and most can be most helpful.
Yeah. So there's some interesting pieces there that I'll throw out for you to maybe grab onto, which are, there's a soup kitchen in the Shrive Line, which is where all of the
Shrive Line?
Yeah, the Shrive Line, which is where all of the like religious people, the people of the Ascendancy are. I'm trying to find the name for it. I'll pull it for you. But know that there's one in the Shrive Line. There's also, I think, one in one of the other areas. I think we might have two, but that could be a mistake from, or that could be like something that has gone away since then. The other thing I'll note is that as far as living situations are concerned, there's a place called South Soffit, which we saw in the previous season, that is for the people that are a little more destitute, people that are a little more lower class. The thing that happens in South Soffit, South Soffit is interesting because it's built into the ruins of Old Fair. So the eaves are on top, which are like the fancy area, and then in like the ruins down below the eaves where they have all the electricity, there have been people that have taken up residence because they're basically siphoning off of the electricity from above. And a lot of the people that are the housekeepers and general like worker class for the people in the eaves live in South Soffit and go up to get to their work. The other interesting thing about South Soffit, when we're thinking about it, it's in layers. So the people that are more well off in South Soffit would live at the ground floor, because the fires and the smog and also all the pollution moves up and collects at the top. And so all the people that are more destitute actually live higher up. It's also more dangerous to live higher up because there aren't rails or anything.
Sure.
Right? So like the higher up you live, the more likely you are to just fall off one of these like walkways and die.
Yeah.
So where we would normally see in our society being the highest, being higher up is more prestigious. In South Soffit, it's actually the people that live at the ground level. This is based on Roman, again, go back to Roman. They would all live on the ground floor because their homes would be 4 or 6 floors high.
Sure. And then like
the people at the
rickety
top would
wooden
die.
staircases that you can fall
Exactly,
off.
all the people would die. So that's interesting. The other thing that I think is interesting to consider, and it's sort of a left turn from there, is that there's another district called Nine Irons, which is where the prison is. But just off of the prison, there's a place called Eastreek. And Eastreek is a landfill, but there is a collection of, there's like an encampment around the landfill where people are thriving off of, thriving, right? But the people are surviving, I guess, off of all of the stuff that's in the trash.
Yeah.
And so there's a camp that's out there where people, that's their home, but they're surviving off the scraps of other people. I think both of those might be interesting areas for you to explore, given that the nature of that character.
Eastreek. Sounds cool.
Eastreek.
Man, that's interesting. the South Soffit, what I like about that is having it touch into a little bit into New Fair, to Old Fair, is because I still kind of like, but I mean, she can kind of theoretically live wherever. I like
you
idea,
could live on the streets anywhere.
Right. I like the idea, of her, maybe there are the, homeless, the population, people who she's once again helping and trying to serve, and keep moving deeper and deeper and deeper, into the South Soffit, which is starting to crest into some of these unknown and untouched areas of Old Fair, and like her going down there to help them, or even scouting herself, and that's where she saw some shit.
Interesting. I love that.
And now she's got that motivation of being like, this shit is dangerous, but also I really don't want the Ascendancy to come in and also displace all of these people either, because people are like living, these are the people's homes now,
right?
But also it's like kind of that duality of needing to protect and keep at bay some of the shit that is coming out of
because if they discover what you found, they're just gonna kick everybody out.
100%. And then you're gonna have 500 people who are displaced. So
I love that. That's
kind
really
of
cool.
what she saw. I've still got a few ideas in my head. Maybe we can even like one-on-one on that.
Yeah, would love that.
Feels like
but that's
you and I
kind
would
of
have also talked at some point.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Just
Like if
little.
I'm like working, once again, like volunteering at like VA hospital type of stuff.
Keeping the beat.
So I kind of, it seems like we're all kind of slowly we'll see what you guys are. That it's like very war, the atrocities of post-war themed, which I think is fun.
It's really cool. Amazing. Let's jump over to you. Thank you, Marisha.
Hell yeah. Playing a soldier. Name I think I'm gonna go for, unless there's SEO problems with an extremely common name, is Sean Finnerty.
Ooh, okay. How do you spell the last name?
Finnerty.
Finnerty. Got it.
I think the Eldritch horror genre has historically been pretty unconcerned with working class people. And I think it's interesting to have a guy in Candela who the background would be working class neighborhood, New Fair, had two older brothers that were also in the military. Eldest brother was kind of like a war hero going into the war from some like minor like Halian like war of adventure, something like a very minor precursor, like 8 years before the big war there was like a minor colonial scuffle and my brother took a fort, and in that war that was enough. He was the biggest fucking deal in that whole thing.
The Archangel of New Fair.
That's great.
So my older brothers were Anthony and Casey.
Okay.
Anthony was the oldest, Casey was the middle, and I was the youngest. And I served with Nathaniel as my CO, and then with Marion as my buddy, and a kid I kind of grew up with.
Cool.
I think he was in a neighborhood where his family had like a garden that he could be in, and me and my brothers were like, come on, play stickball, like little troublemaker kids. And I think I had big class clown energy going into the military, and then that was gone by the time I got out. I think there was, I'll let Luis speak to what happened with his character specifically, but. Basically, due to some circumstances between us, I think I got transferred into a unit that had an extremely dark series of missions during the war, maybe centered around bleed or technology or other things like that. But basically, the TLDR is, during the war, both of my older brothers were very heroic, and they both died. And I was basically doing effectively war crimes for our government and survived totally fine. Uninjured, totally good. And if we want to, this is something, I assume I'll say more knowing that we're not like a metagamey table.
That's something we should actually talk about, is like player information is different from character information, especially because we have 3 episodes. that we get to tell our story in.
Sure.
We should think about those 3 episodes as a team, right? Like we are all going in, we all want to tell that story, and us knowing up front what and I'll ask each of you as well, like what are our goals for our character as far as like what's the story to be told, and so being on the table about it is important.
So, like, Dad is dead while I'm a kid, like industrial accident, dead. Mom, Peggy, taking care of us. The war starts. Because my oldest brother was a war hero, he got engaged to a woman way out of his station. Jane Windermere, incredible aristocrat. Jane Windermere, beautiful, lovely. Interesting thing is that Jane Windermere's main suitor, another aristocrat, was this guy Nicholas Clyburn. His dad, General William Clyburn, was the general for the army. In any case, my brother got transferred to a different platoon.
That's
Weird. Right before a battle where everyone died and our artillery never showed up. And after that happened,
oh boy,
my brother Casey, who was in the unit, was in my older brother's unit. They were closer. I was like a sort of like, whoops, didn't mean to have 3, baby. And so my 2 other older brothers were much closer in age. Casey accused his commanding officer, this guy, Major Vanderfeld. He was like, there's espionage. Basically, was like some fucked up shit happened. It got his superior officer court-martialed. It was dismissed. Case didn't go through. A month later, my brother Casey was court-martialed for espionage and executed.
Oh shit.
And when I got back, my mom Peggy, without anyone kind of like looking out for her, or without Anthony being alive anymore, had been committed to a sanatorium, and our house had been seized. So that's what happened when I got back to New Fair. And I think
heroes welcome.
Heroes welcome. And what I was doing was not very heroic. I think it was a lot of like, hey, there's shit going on the other side of this. There's technology races going on. We need you to roll up. You're going to go to a facility. There's going to be kids in, or maybe not lines there, but like things where you're like, whatever.
We didn't like kids, so we can play with kids.
But things, things where it's like, hey, you have to go burn down this facility. And you go to the facility and there's like a kid bending a spoon with his mind. Right. And you're like, that's a child. And they're like, burn it. And you do it. Yeah. And you go, I don't know what I saw. And they went, you don't need to know. And like that happening kind of over and over again. In any case, thanks for the job, boss.
I just handed you the sheet of paper.
I think that I'm pulling like doubles every day at Candela because there's nothing for me back here.
I love that. I mean, it's horrifying. But I think that we're gonna have. In our sessions, I would love the opportunity to throw to you for some flashbacks of what you saw during that, or what you know about that.
Jane Windermere.
Jane Windermere was Anthony's fiance before he passed. Who is now, I believe, Jane Windermere is Nay Windermere is now Jane Clyburn.
Of course.
Oh right.
Because she ended up marrying the general.
She ended up marrying the general's son. Yeah, Nicholas.
That's fucked.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then Casey was court-martialed and...
Casey was court-martialed and executed. So it's this weird thing where Anthony is like still venerated, and there might even be like...
Right, he died on the war front.
He was already a war hero. He died valiantly in a massacre, taking the line.
Even if it was... Maybe some fucked up shit was going on.
Why didn't the artillery show up? And then Casey is was a traitor. Yeah.
Because Casey was so Casey knew something was awry. The artillery that didn't show up,
and he found some connection. He was like, "There's some espionage going." He couldn't pin anything on anyone important, but he was like, at the very least,
said the wrong thing to the wrong person.
He was like, my commanding officer who approved the transfer of my older brother. Something fucked up happened. And found some evidence of espionage, but it wasn't enough evidence to convict a major. And then after it was cleared, a month later, a totally unrelated series of discoveries You know,
Let him to be court martial. Yeah.
One of the things that we talked about that I think is important to note there as well for all of us to have at the table is that the horrors of this world, and we're sort of seeing it play out already, the horrors of this world are not just about the horrors of the things beyond the flare.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can see the horrors of this world for what they are, and also be fighting the horrors of the other world, right? And the important thing that I will call out, since we had a discussion about it, and I think it reinforces that theme, is that I'm not interested in necessarily looking at this Clybourne general, is that who it was? General, as somebody who was being influenced by magic. Right? They weren't accumulating bleed. They weren't corrupt in some way.
Just
through
a
magic.
bad guy.
They're just a bad guy.
Yeah.
And I think you know, as we start to think about the way in which we can make this nuanced and interesting, like, there are people that, yes, certainly can be influenced by magic, by bleeding, can be doing bad things because of that. But it's more interesting to me to also interlace people that are actually just human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pull out your bleed detector around an asshole and you're like,
Just an asshole.
totally clean.
So I'm gonna lean into those things, but I would also encourage you all to, when you're thinking about your character and thinking about how we approach this story, to lean into those themes as well. This, where I'm already seeing some pop up, right? It's like the war, before and after the war.
Yeah. The war's over. Its effects are not.
Right.
No, never.
Yeah. What it means to be evil. What does
Yeah,
evil
20
actually mean, right? What does being bad actually mean? The gray area between good and evil and magic and mundane.
I know, it's already
I also,
porous.
I'm 100%
Porous.
jumping the gun because we're going to be talking about connections and everything. But
Yeah.
I think a cool connection could be that maybe I knew your mother.
Ooh, I love that. Peggy. She's still in the sanatorium.
She's in Gracelight, so Gracelight Sanatorium, and I think that's in, I don't know, I'll look up for you where it is. I think it's in the Seidel, if I remember correctly.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's jump over to you, Sarah.
So full disclosure, I'm very new to the world of these types of games.
Sure, of course.
And something I was thinking on is, you know, I'm a Muslim, and there's so much rich sort of paranormal activity, for lack of a better word, in Islam. And so I'm intrigued by the idea of the jinn, which in Islamic theology, philosophy, are kind of like the intermediary step between angels and humans, where the jinn are kind of like angels, but they have free will versus the angels who serve God. And there's even a story in my family background where I think it's my great-grandfather was essentially an exorcist. And he allegedly in India years ago exorcised a jinn out of a child, trapped it, and only said, I will let you go if you promise not to harm my family for the next 7 generations. And so I think I'm generation 6. 7 will be my children. My grandchildren are.
Your grandchildren.
Oh my gosh.
There's a lot of generations of no one pitching in and capturing a gem. You guys have been resting on your fucking laurels for a minute. You can fucking.
This is why I think I'm tone deaf to this stuff in real life, because they don't come near me.
Right.
So I'm fascinated by this story, and this is sort of the basis for my inspiration for Dr. Jinnah Basar.
cool.
Cool.
She goes by Jean.
Can you
Is
spell?
that Jinnah with a G?
Yeah, can you spell
It's,
first
yeah,
name?
it's Jinnah. Last name Basar, Basar.
You want our characters to refer to your character as G.
Yes.
Do you want us above the table to refer to her as Jinnah?
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't know yet. But I love that question.
Jinnah, Jinniah. Is that what you said?
Jinnah.
N.
Double Edge. And
Jinnah.
Sean was AUN or AW?
SEAN.
Oh, thank you.
Marisha, what was your guess?
I think I'm gonna stick with Beatrix because I thought that was fun with an X.
Yeah, I like that name.
Done.
So a little bit about Jean. Her father in this world was some sort of occultist who families would call upon when they had suspected paranormal activity in their home, possession. They would call him as sort of a holy man to come deliver an exorcism. And as a child, I was the only child. I would assist him. I would go with him. So I grew up seeing these troubled children and teenagers especially. And I would see the varying results that would happen. I think I fully believed what he was doing. Fully, without question. To the point where when my mother developed an illness in my early teens, my father diagnosed it as a spiritual illness and administered all sorts of essentially homeopathic treatments to her. Later on, I would learn that it was a cancer, and because of my father's interference and my mother's belief in him as well, it was untreated. She was never taken to a doctor. She didn't get proper care. And I assisted him. I would bring her medicines. So I think after my mother died, that was a turning point for me where I viewed magic as people being taken advantage of at their most vulnerable state. And I vowed I would never touch it again. I was like a tree growing away from my father. Like he's not the source of light. And when I was 16, I began my medical training. 2 years later, the war broke out. And I immediately jumped into the field as a doctor. And truly a surgeon. I had a knack for putting people back together that in all circumstances you would think they could not be put back together. I had a sixth sense for what was wrong, what needed to be connected where, what was about to give out. An intuition question mark about what needed to be fixed. The war ended. I was 24. And then I think, this is where I'm a little unclear, I think it was at that point where I was recruited briefly into Eons.
That's right.
Having, for my talent being very recognized. And I think there's also an element of becoming a surgeon with a private practice, private patients, very in demand, because I just know how to fix people up.
Right.
I think that my attitude is people deserve to know the truth. I think during the war, one of the biggest things that upset me, other than the massive bodily violence, was this disinformation campaign. So much confusion, people not knowing the facts, kind of the guidelines from up, from whoever was kind of disseminating that, be it military, government, or the periphery? No, the ascendancy? The ascendancy? Mixed messaging. Yeah. People not knowing what to do. The messaging changing. And facts not always being disseminated. I think that I'm committed to the truth. I'm committed to fixing people. And up until I was recruited to Candela, I was like, I'm never going to touch magic again.
Yeah.
Though at Eons, I think I saw how magic was being explored with the scientific bent.
Yeah.
And I think why I joined Candela is they are trying to take care of vulnerable people through truth, through discerning what exactly is going on.
And their goal is to contain and destroy sources of bleed.
Yeah.
Magic. So going off what you're saying, I think there's a really interesting thing of like, Eons is using magic in a way that's scientific, where Candela is actually, their whole thing is to contain magic, to keep it sequestered away. I mean, one of the things that exists for Candela is something called the Fourth Pharos, which we sort of talked about, but it's a place that they take magic stuff that's leaking bleed, that's leaking this like corruption, they take it and put it in a vault that isn't even on Earth anymore, or on the planet anymore, right? Like they get rid of it out of this realm.
Yeah.
So that
Put it in the mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
Put it under the ground.
Literally shoot it off into space.
In the ocean. Yeah.
It's kind of like.
Bury this
And so
nuclear
because of that,
waste.
I would imagine there's probably a gravitation towards these people that are also. If magic is going to exist, right? If it's going to be the cause of so much harm, that being a part of an organization who is trying to quell it is probably the, while also looking out for people.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a couple of them. I mean, if we look at something like OUP, they're sort of the periphery-based group of it. But their whole thing is just to, like, make people forget about it. They're like Men in Black. So they'll go in and just, like, wipe out a whole block of people, if needed, to make everybody... To make sure everything is kept quiet. Where Candela wouldn't enact that kind of violence.
Right. The violence of not knowing the truth.
Right.
That's what gets me mad.
Yeah.
Damn, the collateral damage.
Yeah. And I think, I wrote down Dr. Ida Ashraf.
Mm-hmm.
Is she Eon's?
I need to look it up.
Okay.
I think she
Either
is
her or
Eon's.
Avery Choi. I think they were they were both
weigh-in.
doctors. They were the weigh-in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. Oh! What I'm interested in, too, is this amount of skepticism, right? Mm-hmm. Because skepticism, to a certain point, is healthy and necessary, but there is a point where skepticism closes you off to other possibilities. Mm-hmm. And I think when I started with Candela, I had a fair amount of skepticism even for my fellow colleagues and their relationship with magic, if any of them were particularly magically inclined. Because I'm like, you're a charlatan, you're like my father.
Right.
But I think my relationship, I'm interested in exploring that a little bit. What does it mean to be skeptical of something? And when do you need to let that go?
Yeah.
And open yourself up to what you think might even be absurd.
Right. Well, and the thing that for me is also interesting in that sense is, like, you first encountered magic as a scam. Mm-hmm. In some regard, even if your father wasn't meaning to scam,
right?
Like it was regarded as, we can only imagine in a world where magic exists that it is even more common for people to scam people, right? And so, and so, last time,
you think no one would lie about it? I think no one would lie about it.
Oh yeah, we discussed that. So I think in that way, right? That was the first, and then seeing how Eons was using real magic, there's an approach of, like, okay, this thing is either being used as a way to be able to scam people, or is corruptive if it's real.
Right.
Those are the two options that we have in front of us. Right? And so even if the skepticism gives way to the understanding that it's real, I think the thing that might be able to be retained, right, is this idea of, like, but this thing is bad. So people are pretending to have it because it gains them some sort of currency, but the people that actually have it are withering away, are dying, are getting, anybody who's using real magic are getting hurt. And so it is inherently bad for all of the reasons. Right? Which is a really interesting, like, there are people who I think are probably waffling in this world between whether magic is good or bad. Yeah. Right? And you're sort of already in the camp of, is it real or is it bad? That's the dichotomy.
But yet.
Yeah.
Is there any good? Is also a curiosity she has.
Sure. Like, can this be utilized? Can I leverage this? Yeah, and that's that step outside of the viewpoint that you already have, which is either it's a scam or it's bad.
Yeah. That's the place to grow to.
That's the place. Yeah, that's the place that you are. The place that you are currently. And so developing out an arc from there is really interesting. Anything else from Jean? From John?
She has a watch that doesn't, like, keeps. She has to wind it and wind it. It keeps falling out of sync into a different time. Yeah. And she doesn't know why.
That's cool.
Why, Doctor? Why?
I think maybe she got it from a dead soldier in the battlefield. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wait, what? Oh no! So what's going on?
That's awesome.
So cool.
Great.
Zehra.
Let's move over to you.
Okay. My dude is named Marion Collodi, Collodi. Marion, Marion.
O-N, thank you.
Spell your last name one more time.
Collodi.
Same as the author of Pinocchio.
Yes.
Uh,
purpose.
before we continue, so sorry. Pronouns for Marion.
He, him.
He, him. Okay.
Yes.
And I'm actually, before we continue, going to go back around and do everybody so that I can write it down. So we'll come back to you.
Jean, she, her.
She, her. Great. And then Brennan.
He, him.
He, him. Great. And Marisha.
She, her.
She, her. Thank you. And then Travis.
He, him.
Great. Okay. Amazing. Back to Marion.
Okay, so Marion grew up in the same area as Sean. We've known each other since we were kids. But I think kind of our journeys have been pretty different. Although we've ended up in the same places again and again. So with Marion, I'm curious about... I started off with wondering what this sort of like spaces in between, because in this world there's the new, the old, the rich and the poor, the past and the present and the future, all these like, I don't know, these polarities and these spaces in between I started to kind of become curious about. And then I started to spin on like existing, non-existing, and I had to like rein it in. But where I kind of landed was just wondering what bleed is like, the unknown and the mystery of this world that has this veil of reality, and then these maybe other worlds and this magical realm. What would it be like if your first exposure to that potentially happened when you were very young? Marion is the son of gardeners whose grandparents were very lower working class. Okay. But his father had a green thumb and had this like kind of poetic way of seeing things grow, and in a similar fashion would take Marion to work, and Marion sort of started to see the kind of magic of tending to these silent living things. I think kind of as a result of that, maybe we made a little extra money, had a little bit of a garden, and maybe some of the neighborhood kids became either fascinated with this little like extra little plot of land that we had, but maybe some of the kids were not very nice to Marion, because my parents were working class-ish, but also like in this very particular vocation. So as a kid, Marion would sleepwalk, and he was like 8 years old. He was sleepwalking, and he was dreaming of something essentially reaching into him. And as he started to wake up from the dream, he believes that he experienced his soul being taken out of his body. Mm-hmm. And then it was gone.
When that happened, did Marion see the thing that was taken? Like, did they see a hand? Did they see a figure? Was there any sort of, or was it leaving you on its own? Or did you feel the force?
I felt it being pulled.
Got it. Okay.
I felt it was being pulled, and sort of a vague image of a hand. Okay. And definitely sort of the feeling of a presence of someone.
Got it. Okay.
So he is. So and then it happened, and then he was wide awake, and it was like silent and crickets, and like the world went on. Yeah. The night went on, and without knowing what else to do, he just walked himself back to bed, and eventually fell asleep. And the next morning woke up with no one, as if it never happened. But he believes inside of him that this was taken from him, and has lived with that very vividly in him. And it's affected the way that he relates to other people, and he wants it back. Yeah. Now, whether above game, because what I like to throw to the game masters lots of possibilities. Sure. I'm less interested in whether that is what happened,
Yeah.
I'm more interested in exploring how someone who at a young age was affected by something like this in this way, and it affected his paradigm.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in seeing how that unfolds, whether his soul is there, whether it is gone, whether it is fragmented, whether it exists somewhere else but he's tethered to it, whatever. Whether it was all, whether it was just a dream, is less important to me in the long run.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about what happens to him as that belief exists in him.
Yeah.
He became a gardener. The war broke out. Decided to bring honor, I guess, to I would imagine, like when I was in high school, we would have like the recruiters show up all the time at my high school, and so I think that happened to him, and he was recruited and wanted to go and be a hero or do something right.
Well, and one of the things I would say too with that, just to give, because we are very lucky in the world that we live in right now, that most of us at the table here, from what I know, have never been in this place. But like in New Fair during the war, the people were invading their country and were literally outside the doors of their city. You could see the fighting happening to the west of the city, and so I think that like visceral sense of if I don't go protect the city, who's going to?
Answer the call.
Answer the call. Like that's a really visceral thing that we don't really have. None of us, at least from what I know, have had to experience. And so reflecting on that, right? That tells me this person who's just a gardener, a child, deciding to like go out and try and be a hero.
How long did the war last, and how long have it been since the war?
So the war lasted six years, and it's been 3 years since the war.
And so, I also, Marion is a medium, but is completely unaware of being a medium. Oh. So he is basically a medium that's starting to have hints of what that means happen, but he basically thinks his stat block is that of a soldier, but he's a medium.
That's cool.
He also has a scar from where that the spirit was pulled from him, and it's like a starburst on his chest.
Is it like keloid, or is it like discolored? Like what's the
Birthmark?
visual
Like,
there?
what's it,
I think it's like scar tissue.
Okay.
But
keloidy
but with
kind of.
like these like kind of like veins, like these purple kind of veins.
Yeah.
Underneath it in a way,
Yeah.
kind of seeping through it.
So cool. And just so that everybody knows, you're literally starting with a scar.
I am starting with a scar.
So starting with one scar filled in.
Yes.
Because of that, I give Luis the option of either taking an extra action point or taking 2 drive. An additional 2 drive to compensate for the fact that
you're gonna die.
Yes. I know, right? I'm closer to death than I die, which could be so fun. So kind of my side of our shared time is answering the call, cut to basic training. I run into my friend Sean, and for me, suddenly, instantly, because kind of feeling like a fish out of water. I'm not I'm not I'm a medium who doesn't know he's a medium who's trying to have a soldier stat block. So as soon as I see my buddy from the neighborhood, I think I kind of latch onto him, and we go through basic training together. We get assigned to the same squad together, and then at some point, we were in a skirmish that went south, and I maybe a soldier companion of ours, I don't know, like clearly people were dying right in front of us. And when it was time to flee because our lives were, depending on it, I got wounded. I remember Sean starting to pull me to safety, and that's one of the earlier times where premonition started to hit me, an actual medium ability. where I just see us running through gunfire and chaos, and all of a sudden an image of a bullet heading towards us enters my mind, and I yell duck, and he basically ducks, and the bullet whizzes right past his head, and then jump or left or something, give him a couple of 2 moments where the premonitions hit me, and I save his life.
Fucking trench warfare in 1917, like crazy.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
But and for me, premonitions when they hit me, I might before calling out that I'm using this ability, I might let you. I mean, you fully describe what happens, and as someone is taking a mark, imagine in gameplay, I interrupt you as if everything you said happened in my mind, and I activate the premonitions to avoid them getting the
You're
mark.
just 3 seconds ahead.
It's 3 seconds ahead.
100%.
So, imagining, very grotesquely, seeing an image of my friend who's leading me out get shot in the head, but then me 3 seconds ahead of it and yelling at him to duck.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. Well, feel free to jump in when I'll describe some shit, and then you can jump in and say, I saw it
coming.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that.
Yep.
So basically, soul ripped out of me, premonitions, freaking out in this moment. I swore you to secrecy. You don't tell anybody that happened. Which then resulted in you getting credit for saving me and getting the promotion that he gave you.
Oh my god.
You're welcome.
Oh, I got a big promotion to the Deathblade Night Falcons. That doesn't feel.
This feels like it was sideways.
Harbingers of joy.
The
Wow,
Ruby
you're
Skull
so lucky.
Brigade. So.
And then, just to kind of wrap it up kind of quickly, I see myself wounded, but not grievously wounded, maybe being treated by the doctor. But for whatever reason, as my buddy was moved to this, Harbingers of Joy squad, I then found myself out of combat and basically given guard duty, a really easy position to ride out the rest of the war, where I was gardening again in a sense, but just being a sentry for the bodies that came and went, but they were just as silent as the plants that I was taking care of, because they never acknowledge you when you're just the guard.
Come on, bro.
You're a gardener, but it's G-U-A-R-D.
Exactly.
Oh!
Yes.
Wow.
Went from gardener to guard.
That gets snaps.
But I don't think he's not messed up. I think he's, relatively speaking, probably has more of a positive outlook than a lot of people
Well, you saved
around
people's
him.
lives, right? You were you saved people's lives by being there.
And if you really believe that your soul was taken from you, the very thing that keeps you human, and you're still human, I just imagine that it's just a matter of time where the cords will be cut and then I just fall as an empty vessel. So I don't know. I feel like he thinks he's on borrowed time, and that affects your outlook. And I think for him, perhaps for now, I don't know how everything's unfold. Right now, I think he might have a tendency to see the brighter side of things.
Yeah.
As a result of that, maybe.
That sounds awesome. Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
Which is based on that. There's an interesting thing in terms of the Fairlands and everything like that. Because Zehra talked about it a little bit with the concept of jinn, and then we have a concept of a soul here. There are sort of these religious, we don't think of a soul as being a religious concept, but it fully is, right? It's not a neutered, sterile, cultural concept. It very much comes from a place and time.
The concept of a soul means there's got to be the concept of an afterlife.
Or something like that, right? And is the soul something that is seeking enlightenment? Is it something that's seeking paradise? Is it something that, was it C.S. Lewis? You're not a material being having a spiritual experience. You're a spiritual being having a material experience. All that stuff, right? So, is there a little bit, even down to colloquialisms? If my guy's going to be very working class and probably have a typically non-fantasy voice or accent, right? but like there are expressions of like, oh, this person's like, oh, you're so sweet, you're an angel. Or like, oh, this person's like my fairy godmother. Like all these things are very specific that kind of require some cosmology or mythology pinned up behind them. Yeah. And I'm wondering if the Fairlands or Hale has cosmology or mythology behind it. Obviously, all the magic stuff going on, it seems like 100% of the magic we actually encounter is going to be pretty Lovecraftian nasty shit. The odds that we get sent somewhere and it's like, we got a problem, there's a unicorn in the back. It's like
run amok.
Run amok.
You tell me the
Spencer's
kind
like-
of game you want to play. I'm here to facilitate all of you as
That's
players.
the story Lovecraft was too scared to write.
So-
Someone
It's a
seeing a beautiful unicorn, and you just start bleeding from the nose, going, "I've seen something I shouldn't see."
Oh, you're speaking to me.
A horse with a horn on its head.
So Adventure Time.
Yeah.
Unicorns.
But it's this interesting thing where it seems like, and basically it seems like the actual factual cosmology of this world is that outside the flare, it is nasty fucking business, and only squid, dogs, and blood monsters are coming for us. Right.
So there is a cosmology that the Ascendancy is built off of.
Okay.
And it is the father, the mother, and the child. So it's sort of the Trinity.
Interesting.
The way in which the I guess the religion is positioned is Catholicism.
Yeah.
Like it is very. There's more in the book about it, and I can send anybody who wants a little more about Ascendancy stuff. I can send it to you. But there is this one of the wars that happened 600 years ago was a holy war, and it was basically this attempt by what is now the Ascendancy to create a national religion.
Gotcha.
The Ascendancy is the official religion of the Fairlands.
Holy Roman Empire. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so so they are angels, demons, these concepts, anything that you have from Catholicism can essentially be ported over. The religion there is designed to feel very much like our world. So like we could call a thing a demon.
Cool.
Right? Like that exists in our language.
That's exactly it. Like, what would be the language that a common person would use to refer to some eldritch?
Yeah. So a demon is a very common thing to say, right? Or a devil. All of these things are, but they are more Ascendancy based than what is actually truth. There is a group called Pyre who are essentially like the what are they called? The
Zealots.
They're zealots, but what was the group that would? No, not the Freemasons. The
Templar?
Yeah, the Templars. Thank you. Thank you off camera. The Templars. They're essentially Templars. They're knights, and of the Ascendancy, and they are their own. They're a cult essentially, but their whole thing is to destroy magic using magic, even if it destroys their bodies. So they just go and like sacrifice themselves.
The Pyre, P-Y-R-E.
P-Y-R-E. Yeah, and forgive me. There's been a lot of mythology created in the past couple of months, but I believe it's the flint and the flame are the two aspects of that. And the flint are the assassins, and the flame are the occultists.
That's cool. That's right.
So, no. So that is part of Pyre. Pyre is basically like using their status as a religious organization to destroy things that are an abomination upon what the Ascendancy believes is true. The other last thing I'll say is that the concept of souls is very common throughout the Fairlands. So this ties very well in. One of the things that all of you would know is that there are two common practices within the Fairlands that have to do with souls. These have become much more prominent since the end of the war because of all of the death, right? One of them is actually an old Farron practice, which is where they would bury bodies with the mouths covered. So they would like either take gold, liquid gold, and pour it over the mouths to keep them sealed shut.
Oh, God.
If they couldn't do that, people who didn't have that kind of gold was seen as seeing sort of a thing that would protect you from, like there's an entire building that's covered in gold because they believed that it would keep out things, bad things, or keep things
Like
in,
silver.
right? They'd line it with gold, kind of like silver, right? There's a barrier. They gold leaf entire rooms to keep them safe. But they would take the hands and cut them. So all the bodies that are buried in the Fairlands are buried like this. And the reason why is because they believe that, I can't remember the exact term, it's a breath binding, I think is the term. A breath binding is a big thing where they want to keep the soul inside the body. And if you aren't buried with your hands cupped over your mouth and nose, the soul could escape and it will wander.
Gotcha. So
This
ghosts
is
are
common
also
practice?
Common practice is to bury people like this.
Even like among secular
Yes.
people? Fascinating.
It's just a common thing that now exists. It's just how people are buried. Just like we bury people in coffins or whatever, right? Like it's
Coins
that
for the
kind of
boatman,
common.
like the whole-
Right, it's just
Copy
that's
that.
how people are buried. But that same concept of covering the mouth and nose,
What's it called again? Soul binding?
breath binding.
Breath binding.
When people have breath binding, they're cupping like this. And that same concept of the soul leaving the body, if the hands are not cupped or if the mouth and nose are not sealed, the opposite of that is true. They would take people that they wanted to be tormented for life, and they had these like contraptions that would pry their jaws open
Yeah.
for when they died, so that their soul would have to escape and wander. So they'd be tortured infinitely and never find each other.
I bet Eons does that stuff.
So for sure, Eon shit, right?
Gosh.
Like these are all things that,
Thanks.
if they exist in one direction, they also exist in
The
the
hell of a
other.
death rattle.
Yeah.
The last note I'll give you for the lore drop is, and all of you would know this because the cemeteries around here, you would see the fence of the cemeteries covered in pins, like sewing pins or needle pins. Most of them have been decorated with like names. Essentially, for people that could not have the breath binding done, killed in action in the war, had no face to be buried, the people of the Fairlands would take needles and stick them in the graveyard, the fence of the graveyard where those bodies were buried, to keep the bodies, to keep the souls bound to the confines of the graveyard. So it's pinning their soul to that place. And so you will see pins covering any fence of a graveyard around here.
So
Yeah.
then, is there an afterlife that's believed in? If we're keeping the souls contained to the body or
Yeah.
keeping them contained to an area, what happens after death?
So the ascendancy is trying to put people into eternal rest. It's believed that you are like, if your body is confined to, or if your soul is confined to your body, you get to rest for eternity, whatever that means for you. It's a peace.
Oh,
it's
it's
peace
okay.
for eternity, right? That's essentially what it is. That also comes from, that's passed down from old Farron beliefs as well. There's an eternal rest. One of the pieces, and again, this is old Farron belief, so would not be something that has come into play here. But in Old Fair, they wanted to keep the souls in the bodies because they believed that at some point they would be able to raise those people up again.
Yeah.
Like a Day of Judgment vibe?
So, like, yeah, it's called the Awakening. They could awaken the people that had died if they kept their souls within them.
Okay.
Spencer, this is very cool and it slaps.
Thank you. I know it's way more than you probably need, but also...
This is so relevant.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
This is all old
With-
parent stuff.
It's all well, and it's stuff that has in some ways been like culturally passed down, but without people understanding why.
Right, adopted. and-
Right?
yeah.
So like
It's very real, right? Like how many practices go unexamined that are just become part of a sort of like continuation without knowing the deeper underlying.
Yeah.
right, like
Why do we exchange rings when we get
why
married?
we pray,
Right.
why we take communion, right?
It's
Yeah,
his
why?
property now.
Yeah, that's why.
So, sorry, one more question.
Any
on this.
questions? Yes, please.
If, for example, a patient were to pass away on a doctor's table, would the doctor then, like, note time of death, raise the hands
and put them over.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely. And if it doesn't happen fast enough, they're afraid that the soul will escape. The common belief is that like, oh yeah, that's just the way that we put them in eternal rest.
Catholicism and
Who
like
decides
original sin.
in an operating scenario when the hands go up?
Right.
And,
I wasn't done. Like, seriously, like who decides when you give up on a patient?
Yeah. You'll see there's a catalyst in question. You don't need to answer those immediately, but I will ask for them before our game begins. That's the thing that got you into Candela and the question that you're seeking out because of it. But during the description, I would also love if we get a little bit of physical. Just a physical...
Yes. I am playing Nathaniel Trapp. He, him. I am playing the role of Face, and I will be taking the specialty of a journalist. Nathaniel comes from a family and life of wealth and privilege that he has bucked against in his past, and trying to earn his own place in the world, enlisted in the military, saw the horrors of that, found where he came up short, and in coming out of that has decided to try and make a better mark on the world himself as a journalist by asking questions that maybe the family that he came from would prefer that he not, and seeing what he can stir up in this city. And he has come into Candela from having been saved by a previous investigator during a moment in the past, and now he feels as a man that knows what it's like to hold a debt to someone else that he has to repay that debt and bring some folks that he knows with him.
I love that. As a journalist, are you taking the specialty as the idea of the way in which you operate, or are you actually working for a company, like a paper company?
I think the way in which I operate, but
Okay.
I might be more interested to learn about what actually exists out there in terms of like press for the affair.
There's two. There's the Halen Star, and there's the Civil Tribune. The Halen Star is think like NPR, and the Civil Tribune is think like a government-run newspaper, like something they might have in like China, right?
Whoa.
Where it's like it is run by state news.
I love using state money to root out corruption.
So either one, if you're interested in playing either of those, an actual journalist for either of those, we can totally talk about it.
Okay, I'll think about
think about it.
It might make my family furious if I was working for NPR.
I love that the example of the non-government one is NPR. National Public Radio.
It's true. It's true.
There's not one rag in this whole city. There's no one's done the New York Post.
There's no Daily Mail.
Where's the tab? Where's like, no, don't worry about bleed. Here's the scandal. You know?
All right. I will be playing Beatrix B. Monroe. She is she, her, is her pronouns. She's an older woman, maybe I'd say in her like mid-50s. She's a slink with her specialty in criminal, but not your usual burglar type or skullduggery or cloak and dagger that you imagine. She's much more of a Robin Hood, and is, as I said for my style, very much a mischievous humanitarian. She has been made. Buddy, here. Travis has the treats now. She has been made a widow by the war, by the inciting incidents of the Great War, and after that happened, has very much shifted her focus towards helping those who are misfortunate and who are those who were very much victims or displaced by the war, herself being very much a displaced victim. She's kind of the local bag lady. Everyone knows good old Aunt B. And even though she has found herself on hard times, that does not equate to hard spirits for her. And she is very giving and nurturing, and she will take the last dollar that she has to go buy some flour and sugar to make a nice basket of muffins to hand out to the neighborhood kids. And of course, she has found herself as a part of Candela because in taking care of the locals and a lot of the refugees and the veterans of the war, she's very much in touch with the people who live in the streets or in alleyways or in dark tunnels and sewers beneath New Fair, some that have pushed into Old Fair. And a lot of the more people that get displaced, the more that they're going to expand. The more that they're going to expand into the tunnels of Old Fair, the more that has led her into Old Fair. And the deeper she has gotten, she's seen some shit. And she's here to really protect the lower class and the common folk. And and Homer's about to bark.
Got his trusty. She's got her trusty corgi. She's yarfing on bag lady's scraps.
Yeah, that's.
You okay, buddy?
Buddy. Jordan,
How many
Haley,
treats
throw
you give him?
away.
It's all content. It's all content.
You give him a whole bag?
Hey, it's all content.
Yeah, and that's Beatrix.
Do you feel, and this is not like a calling her out, this is me asking arc-wise, do you feel as though she's using that kindness, that selflessness as a shield to avoid confronting the trauma that she has within her?
Probably a little bit. I imagine she is finding healing in being able to help people in ways that she can't necessarily find that help and comfort for herself.
Okay. Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. She's channeling it.
She's channeling it. Yeah.
That's great. Let's roll for you.
Sean Finity, South Suffolk, born and raised. Headed off to war when I was 16, be like my older brothers. Got back. Ma had been shipped off to the sanatorium. Annie B was nowhere to be found. Casey had been executed. Andy died in Roderswald. Things were not looking so good. Lieutenant came out of nowhere, told me monsters were real. So that's what I do now. Got taken to the chapter house for the first time. Old friends with Marion from a young age. Got brought in. Annie B got looped in. And we're the ones they send in when things are not looking so hot. I guess they call it an investigator when you work for Candela, but we do, I think, precious little investigating. We kind of come in after the other guy is already investigated, and when a
Cleanup job.
and when something kind of needs to happen, so we gonna make that happen. And then met Doc over here when I got put on the detail, and it's a pleasure and an honor working with you. I catch the bullets, she takes them out. Otherwise, it's a pretty good gig. They don't pay, so I'm not sure how. Kind of seems like you need to have a family that has money to kind of work here, but that's all right. Right now I sleep on a cot in a room with a giant astrolabe in it. That's all right. What's the question?
Thank you.
Moving on.
Hello, I am Dr. Jinnah Basar, but everyone calls me Jean. I am the role of a scholar with the specialty of doctor. I, after a childhood of observing would-be magic used in all sorts of exploitative ways by my father, at the age of 16, I determined that I would never touch magic again. I became, through trial by fire, one would say, a celebrated thoracic surgeon because of my years of experience during the war of putting bodies back together on the battlefield. People say I have a sixth sense for how humans fit back together. Men who are past the point of life. Somehow I just have a knack for making it all come back together. Doctor's intuition, I would call it. I think that people deserve to know the truth. I want to help people, especially the most vulnerable people are the most easily deceived. And I think that magic does more harm than good. I was recruited to Eons to practice my medical craft, and it was through my association with Eons I became aware of Candela Obscura. I now still work at Eons, but through my work with Candela Obscura, want to help shed light on some of the terrible practices that happens with magic at Eons. And I feel like at least Candela Obscura is trying to contain that magic. I'm left, though, with a question about whether or not my father was right. Was any of his work for real? Because in my experiences now, working with Candela Obscura, I can't deny that magic exists, and it's mostly bad, but there's some applications of it I can't help but wonder, could this be used to help the vulnerable?
I'm playing Marion Collodi. He, him, Marion, Marion. And I am from the same place that my good friend Sean is from. We knew each other when we were kids. I'm the son of a gardener, but with like working class roots. Early in my childhood, I had an experience that has shaped everything that's happened ever since. I used to sleepwalk, and once I was sleepwalking, and as I was waking up, I had witnessed what I believe someone tearing my soul out from within me and then disappearing with it. And ever since then, I have believed that I have been walking as an empty vessel, but everything else has remained the same and intact. Nothing has changed, although I have a scar on my chest from where that occurred. That looks a lot like a starburst, kind of. But as life went on, as if it never happened, I also joined the military, like my buddy Sean, during the war. And I am playing a medium that doesn't know that he's a medium, or is at least at this point, now with Candela, starting to really discover it. But is in sort of denial about it. So basically he's a medium who thinks that on paper he's a soldier. And found his way into Candela a lot like Sean did through our big boss man over here, pulling us in as soldiers, as veterans, kind of looking for another place to find our roots in. Yeah, that's who I am. Oh, and my abilities, yeah? You want to know that? So for weird, I'm playing the role. Oh no, yeah. I'm weird. I'm weird. I'm weird.
That much is clear.
Keep going. Say a couple more times.
That's my voice now. Just found it.
Getting weirder as you declare that you're weird more often.
My role is weird. My specialty is medium. Yeah, that's what I got.
Amazing. Thank you so much. One thing I'll say before we part. You want to look at the bottom of your sheet. It has illumination keys. If any of those don't match the way in which you want to play your character, feel free to cross one out, cross two out, cross three out. Replace them with illumination keys, either from other sheets or whatever we talk about. We can have a discussion about what we want to replace that with to best encapsulate what your character is looking to do. These keys are how you gain experience in the game. It's how you will ultimately work towards getting more resources for Candela Obscura so that you can heal yourself and refresh your drives and train better. So they are an important piece of making sure that you're crafting your character in a way that allows you to get a positive feedback cycle from the way in which you want to play. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Great.
Can I replace protect someone with do something illegal?
Yeah, totally.
Totally. Reckless.
Do you want to know what we've replaced? Because I replaced make a scene with protect someone.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Love that.
I'm gonna replace do something illegal to speak truth to power.
Amazing.
I replaced avoid a fight with sense phenomena.
Ooh.
I kind of like mine.
I love it. That's no problem.
Teacher's pet. I wanna be
Teacher's pet.
Oh boy.
Well, thank all of you so much. It's an honor and a privilege. And if there's anything that needs to change between now and when we shoot, please let me know. All good. These are flexible up until the day. And I will say too, we reach the day, you play the character. Sorry, you reach the day, you play the character, and you realize I don't really like what I built here. It's always on the table to change the things that you've made decisions on. We are all collectively telling a story together, so that's what's important.
Okay.
Muscle soldier. I didn't say it.
My pronouns are she, her. I'm sorry.
Basic training, adrenaline rush. That's all.
It's okay. We'll put the pronouns in the little name tag. Anything else? We good? Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you,
This is gonna be
Spenser.
dope.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.